Hi everyone, my name is Elena Díaz and these are a few ideas on how to use metacognition in your lessons. When I use metacognition in my lessons, I often use it's called the 7-step model for teaching metacognitive strategies. The 7 stages are activating prior knowledge, explicit strategy instruction, modeling of the learned strategy, memorization of the strategy, guided practice, independent practice, and structured reflection. I took this model from the Metacognition and Self-Regulated Learning report from the EEF. And today I'm going to show you how to use it using the example of the photo card question from the AQA exam. So I would start with activating prior knowledge in my classroom. So as the children come in, this would be on the board. They are very well trained to turn to the back of the book and translate these phrases into the other language, in this case into Spanish. Today, because I'm teaching the strategy to deal with the photo card, I've made my Connect activity a present continuous activity. So whether students remember it or not when they first come into the lesson, by the time we've marked this, they will remember how to do the present continuous and they'll be able to use it in the task. That means that when they're learning this strategy that I want to teach them today, they won't be thinking about how to use the language or what language they need. They'll just be thinking about learning the strategy. So this is my first tip when it comes to metacognition. I would say you need to prepare the ground. You need to make sure that students are very, very ready to learn the strategy that you want to teach them. Stage number 2 is teaching the strategy explicitly. So the strategy that I'm going to use for this is PALM-X, which is one that I know everybody or lots of people use. The answer to the question, what is in the picture, needs to contain people, action, location, mood, and an extra element. And to help students remember them, we've organised it with the acronym PALM-X. So I would spend some time explaining this and teaching it to the students. My second bit of advice here is to create order out of chaos. By chaos, I mean languages. A language is a very chaotic system. And students need you to create a little bit of order and a little bit of simplicity for them so that they can remember, and so that the language is not something that's so daunting, but so they can see it's something is manageable. It empowers them. It makes them feel like they can create themselves. Stage number 3 is modeling the learned strategy. So I would put the letters PALM-X on the board and actually model the answer to go with a photo that's in front of them. So I would start writing this answer. I would take my time. I would make mistakes and correct myself. I would change my mind halfway through. But more than anything, the most important thing would be to let them know what I'm thinking and why I'm making those choices as a linguist. So let them hear what it's like to think as a really good linguist so that they can use that as a model of their own thinking. So I think my most valuable bit of advice today when it comes to metacognition is to take time to say what you think to the students, to verbalize your thinking as a good linguist so that students can use that as a model for themselves. Stage number 4 is memorization of strategy. So I would spend 5 or 6 minutes making sure that students have learned what the letters mean and what letters there are. I would say that my 4th bit of advice here is that metacognition needs time and it's time well spent. So it's okay to stop a lesson to just teach a little bit of a strategy, something metacognitive that's going to use your students, and it'll pay off in the long term. Stage number 5 is guided practice. Guided practice is when you model the technique that you're doing, but with the student's help. So I would put the picture on the board. I would have my 5 letters there, and then I would get the answers to that question using the 4 letters. And I would start most of the answers, but I would ask students to finish the answers for me. So together as a class, we would write down a second model. And then after this comes this stage of independent practice, which is for teachers sometimes is quite difficult because we have to let them use this strategy or do the exercise on their own. The way that I do this particular exercise is I give them a copy of this bit of paper. So if we just have a look, this is what we call a key task. a speaking photo card, which we do in writing first, just to help them practice. So the photograph is on the top right. That's the photograph they want to talk about. We've just done the topic of work. And the question is at the top. The question, what is the I've given them the letters. I probably shouldn't, but I've given them the letters so they can tick them off as they go along, because I know they've learned them by now. And students would write the answers here. After they've finished writing their answer and ticking the letters off, they would assess their answer using my assessment by highlighting where they think they are in the statements and giving themselves a number. I would then collect this and mark it by doing the same thing as they've done, highlighting here where I think they are in the mark scheme and giving them a numerical number mark, and then I would give them something to correct from here, and then something to perfect, something to make their writing better, not just corrections, but something to make their writing even better. I would say the most important part here is not to hover over them, giving them help. It's just to let them be independent and try their skills on their own. And we know they're going to make mistakes. That's absolutely fine, because independent practice is practice after all, and they are practicing. And then our last stage would be structured reflection, where we allow time for students to reflect on whether the process worked for them and whether they would do something differently next time. Please get in touch if you need anything, and I hope this was useful.